clean. Let's keep them coming in. I have the third in a series of shows I'm doing on the economy. 2 shows ago, I had former Minister of Finance Tepe to do Tepenomics, which I called the preview of the budget review. And then the last show, we had Minister of Finance Ken Ofori-Atta justifying his budget. Tonight, I'm going to be speaking to I call him one of the key members of the minority in the Finance Committee, who's going to do the NDC's review of the budget. So this is the third in the trilogy. He's the MP for Bolgatanga Central. Honorable Isaac Adonko is my guest. When I come back, I'll tell you more. Stay with us. Welcome back to The Point of View. Don't forget, The Point of View is brought to you by Airtel Tigo. Life is simple, and we hope to keep the issues simple for you. Honorable Adongo, great to have you. Welcome.
Thank you, and good evening to you, and good evening to your viewers. It's been quite a while since I've been here.
It's good to have you. How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Fantastic.
And good to see you.
Great.
Yeah.
And how did you watch the budget? Because I know, because of social distance, some of you are in your offices. There wasn't a lot of heckling. Were you in the chamber?
Yes, I was. In fact, a couple of chairs have been taken out of the chamber.
Okay.
So we no longer have designated seats for members.
Oh, okay.
And our tags have been removed. So as and when you arrive, you make yourself comfortable. And if you come late and the place is occupied, just as you said, you join the conversation from your office.
So it's like first come, first serve.
Exactly so.
Wow. Yeah. And there was no heckling. In fact, I asked the finance minister what he thought about that, and he was also surprised that for the first time there wasn't any heckling from your side. Was it deliberate?
Well, it was because we fairly knew what was going to happen.
Oh, okay.
We fairly anticipated most of the issues, but don't forget that the minister had already been to the House.
Okay.
To update us on a number of developments that had occurred because of the COVID.
Okay.
So quite fairly, we knew a number of the issues that were going to come up. And we have become used to the way he does his presentations.
Okay.
And so you saw some bit of boredom also on the part of some, because sometimes they just feel that you have to go straight to the point. And spare us quite a lot of the things that take a lot of the time.
It was 2 hours, 15 minutes.
Yes, and we thought that was too long for...
Maybe because of COVID. COVID is big.
Oh, really?
I mean, haven't you heard, globally, COVID is...
No, I'm aware, but...
As in, COVID has affected so many things.
But it doesn't increase the number of pages.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you're reading so much, and you know, he has a way of going... Before he would deliver the bad news... You know, he has to find Matthew, James, and Mark, you know, before he then delivers the bad news. So all that is what people feel that, you know, you could just
make it shorter.
Yeah, exactly.
I see. So you think this is bad news budget?
Yeah, bad news in a number of respects. Bad news because we've basically reversed quite a lot of the efforts that we had made in order to ensure fiscal consolidation. Bad news in the sense that our public debt trajectory isn't looking good. Bad news because the level of borrowing we are taking up to fund the 2020 budget vis-a-vis the quantum of deficit that we are looking at. And if you consider the fact that our debt sustainability situation was already not looking good. We're classified as a very high risk of debt distress. And to be borrowing such an amount of money to fund the deficit. And particularly if you realize that for some of us it's strange that you spend that level of money and you are an economist, you understand the multiplier effect of spending. And the multiplier effect is that your economy is still going to grow at less than 1%. It tells you that the spending really is not going to create a recovery in the economy, and that is quite worrying if all that spending is not going to lead to a recovery of the economy.
But doesn't the fact that COVID is such an unprecedented global shock, all economists agree. World economy is almost contracting. Sub-Saharan Africa is growing at the lowest since 1990. So it's affected supply chains, it's affected many industries. So if it's midterm review based on COVID is bad news, it's not limited to Ghana, it's a global phenomenon.
Well, it is sometimes very easy to find comfort within the averages, but you need to find out what is the impact of COVID on Côte d'Ivoire? What is the impact of COVID on, say, our neighbors, Burkina Faso? What is the impact of COVID on a country such as Nigeria? Or even Cotonou, just Benin around the corner? All these economies that are surrounding us are also being impacted by COVID, and they are showing growth levels above 2%. So if we are doing less than 1%, and our peers, some of whom will feel that we have a far better muscle than them, are doing 2 to 3%, you cannot put everything down to COVID. It means that something fundamentally was wrong with the resilience of our economy. And you know that even before COVID, several vulnerabilities in relation to our economy had heightened. Our external vulnerability wasn't good. Our fiscal risk levels were quite high. And so when you have a situation like that, then it is easier for the slightest hit to accelerate your downward trend. And that is what has happened.
But almost all African countries are benefiting from IMF COVID support. Most of them are taking money from the World Bank. In fact, world's developed countries, the US added another 1 trillion to 2.3 trillion they took already. EU met 3 days ago or last week. They are sharing in the excess of 700 billion euros. Everybody is looking for money. So if you say that Ghana is looking worse than other African countries, I think that's a bit. Is it in terms of the amount we are going for? The amount we are going for is what we are entitled to under IMF, the maximum for now. So what's the... And again, when I interviewed the finance minister, his point was that until COVID, the story was looking good.
And that is what I disagree with.
Which aspect? So how was the story before COVID?
You see, Ghana's economy, the true state of Ghana's economy, even if we disagree with some of the numbers, but we can settle on what we agreed with the IMF.
Okay.
And you don't think that when you were doing deficit on average of 7% was bad enough for the economy. If you look at the fact that on the average we're doing negative primary balance, which means that we're actually borrowing to pay our interest payment, our interest costs. And when you are borrowing to pay your interest costs, what you are technically doing is that you are actually compounding your loan portfolio. And you think that was not bad enough. And so COVID only came to expose the masked economic situation that we had. And I have told you that our vulnerability started 3 years ago. You recall the number of reversals that we had that impacted our reserves when market players were basically selling off our domestic debt portfolios and reversing the monies that was hitting our international reserves and hitting the city. So these vulnerabilities had been there when we're basically collateralizing our revenues into the future and taking up 1.5 billion, of future flows that will come to get fund, now, $1.5 billion. All that were creating very serious funding challenges into the future. And you cannot say that COVID, and if you look at our growth trajectory, you can come from 8% in 2017, and you begin a downward slide to 6.3, and now lower than 6.2. So the trajectory already showed that the growth momentum was slowing.
Permit me, you said IMF doesn't seem to agree because I have the staff report for the Article 4 consultation, November 2019. Let me just read 2 paragraphs. The EFC supported program was completed successfully in March. Since then, authorities have maintained macroeconomic stability. Building on the achievements of the last years, growth remains strong and inflation is well within the target band. However, while the fiscal stance has improved in recent years, it continues to put pressure on the external position and has not completely offset the impact of contingent liabilities on public debt, which continues to rise. You've made the point about debt. Outlook and risk. Medium-term prospects are favorable, with robust growth driven mostly by extractive sector. Fiscal risks in financial and energy sectors could also impact government deficit. Election-based spending pressures in 2020 constitute the main risk to the baseline scenario. This isn't such a bad. This doesn't sound like a bad.
So
this is IMF.
The IMF says that yes, our growth is not driven by the sectors that create opportunities for Ghanaians. The IMF is basically saying that the growth that you are looking at is a growth that is skewed in favor of just a few who have invested huge capital in the oil sector. The IMF is saying that the growth is not underpinned by manufacturing. The growth is not underpinned by the services sector. And the growth is not underpinned by the major sectors of the economy that put food on the table of the average Ghanaian. So you don't want that type of growth. You want an inclusive growth. You want growth that creates employment opportunities. And the IMF is worried. Now the IMF says that in terms of fiscal challenges, the risks are elevated. And point to specific areas where the risks are going to come from. So this is not an IMF that is saying you've done well. In fact, the IMF is worried about contingent liabilities, which are basically arising out of the special purpose vehicles that we are using to disguise the true state of the funding of the budget. So if you are borrowing $1.5 billion, you can call it whatever you wish, but that is already going to create challenges for you in future. And if you are borrowing, if you can call it sino-hydro, you can call it, I don't know the word they use for it, they call it a butter or what have you. The important thing is that those future flows aren't going to be available to you. If you are going to now mortgage your royalties to raise money for about 10 years, those create seniorization over your flows. So in other words, you are going to have to pay those monies before you probably have anything else to spend on your budget. And you don't want a situation where a country is boxed into a corner where almost 40% of its future flows are not available to the government.
But Honorable, you admit that the point you made about growth coming from sectors that don't employ a lot is not new. In fact, under President Mills, we had the highest growth in decades, the 14% growth. It was from oil.
No.
The growth that you point to, the average growth you point to before this period, is oil-driven growth. If you take out, in fact, if you take out oil, I can show you non-oil growth from 2000 to 2016. Bernard, it's not been doing very well.
Bernard.
So my point is that it's the same economic structure we are dealing with.
Between 2009 to 2012, the worst growth, non-oil, was 7.6%. And that was in 2009. Between 2010 to even in 2014, the growth of 14%, 8.6% of that was non-oil. 8.6% of that was non-oil.
Are you sure?
Yes, 8.6% of the growth in 2014 was non-oil. And the least we got was 7.6%. We've never recorded that afterwards. And so to say that the growth has always been driven by oil is not exactly correct. Because...
No, you see, I don't think what you're saying is correct. I have here, if you can show me recent mixed developments, if you have the figure, and I'll show it to you. This is a review of the economy in 2017. And we'll come to the budget. Give me 2 seconds. Review of the economy 2017 by the IMF. Recent mixed developments. Okay, now look at it. It's on the screen. It says, and this is something they did in August 2017. Look at our non-oil growth. Non-oil GDP growth rate. Look at the figure.
Bernard.
The 2017 to 2013 average is 7%. The 2014 to 2016 average, look at it down there, is the black line. So the red line is the 2007 to 2013 average. That's the red line. And this is IMF data I'm showing you.
Yeah, but
now look at the black line look at the black line there. It says 2014 to 2016 average. Look at it. It's it's below 5%. There it is there. And this figure is 2017. You see, I can show it to you. It's here. Page 7 of IMF's 2017 August review of the economy of Ghana. That's the figure there. So you can't tell me that. And this is not oil. So if you take out oil, that's the point I'm making, that our growth has been largely oil driven. If you take out oil, it's not a good story. And there it is there for you.
Bernard, I just wanted, unfortunately, I don't have if you have the 2018 budget. Okay.
I can find it and pull it. I can pull it. But this is.
I'm coming. You leave the IMF.
Yes.
The minister himself came to Parliament.
Okay.
And reported the growth numbers with oil and non-oil. And these are the numbers I am using. Unfortunately, it is not. I'm not.
And
getting,
the numbers prove that our.
We were doing 8.6%.
In what year?
In 2014.
We can check it for you. Yeah. 2014, yes. 8.2% non-oil growth.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. We'll come back to that. So I was just saying that the point you made about.
But even then.
Yes.
Yeah. So you.
Yes, I'm saying that the point you made about the growth not being good quality. Most economists have told us that for years.
No, but Bernard, we have not had oil for years.
You have Jubilee?
I am saying that we've not had that for years.
Okay.
Before oil came, we had an economy built on sectors other than oil.
Okay.
And we had an economy where we consciously decided to structure the economy and build a legal and fiscal framework that will stop this country from moving into what you call the Dutch disease, which is what you are referring to.
Yes.
And so for us to have slipped must be of concern. It's not as if we didn't know that oil producing countries have suffered that curse. And we decided that we needed to structure our framework in order to insulate us from that.
Okay.
So for us to be in that situation is a testament to the fact that we have failed. And it is not supposed to be the new normal if we want to really get out of that. And so, in my view, it is not appropriate for us to think that because other countries had those challenges and we were aware before oil started that it could lead to the Dutch disease, which will mean that we could end up relying excessively on oil to the neglect of the other value-driven sectors. Okay, if we today are admitting that we have lopsided development, that is a failure on the part of us.
But the question is it a failure of this government alone? Because some argue that many indicators, the trend has been southward. I can give an example. If you take Ghana's exchange rate to the dollar, since record started, you can check this on Bloomberg, since record started in the early 90s, in fact, if you even go pre-90s, the currency has consistently depreciated irrespective of which government is in power. So it's depreciated from post-Nkrumah till today. Whether it's NDC, MPP, CPP, Tekwe, Kenoforiata, Kwesiboche, it's been one trajectory. So these are structural issues which shouldn't be the subject of political football. Oh, NDC has come, we did 4.2, MPP, we did 5.1. Those things,
Bernard,
they belie the long trend.
You see, it was on your program that I made this point, that the worst thing that ever happened to this country was for my big brother to politicize the exchange rate. It was on this program.
Okay.
And that
you are referring to the vice president?
Yes.
Okay.
That the worst thing that happened to us was for him to politicize the exchange rate regime. Because I had indicated here that exchange rate is not a goal variable.
Yes.
But it is a shock absorber that allows you to manage external vulnerabilities.
Okay.
And therefore, an appropriate exchange rate is determined also by the exigencies of the time. And it is a reason you don't budget for an exchange rate from the beginning of the year like you do for inflation.
Fair enough.
And I have made that point here.
Good.
That it now compelled us to be peeping into how the Bank of Ghana is using this secret tool.
Okay.
And the more you peep into Bank of Ghana to see how they use this secret tool, the more we create anxiety among our people. And it is the reason I was not comfortable that we could have a whole lecture that looks at the exchange rate as a political game. Okay. So you see, you are now confirming exactly the fear I had.
Okay.
That it was the worst thing that ever happened to us. And I still stand by that.
Okay.
And sometimes when I discuss exchange rate, I do it with some level of moderation.
Yes.
Because a lot of the factors that impact exchange rate is not the fundamentals of the economy. And we all do know that. There are external shocks more or less most of the time. And so immediately you begin to say that it is all dependent on how you have managed the economy without actually undertaking a surgery of the economy to change the structural design of the economy.
Okay.
You cannot have an anchor of exchange rate.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
I'll take a break. When I come back, I'll let Adongo make his case. Adongo has two cases. He said, number one, the figures the government presented to Ghanaians is not the same as the figures presented to the IMF on the deficit. That point of view by Seth Tekpe. But it's also saying that the projected deficit of 11% that finance minister puts out is not even correct. He claims it's upwards of 15%. He's going to argue that case when we come back. This is the point of view. Don't go away.
It's time to be extra. To get extra. Be extra with Airtel Tigo's new call and data bundles. Live extra only on Airtel Tigo.
Dial *111# now.
Airtel Tigo. Life is simple.
Hello, my brothers and sisters. I'm John Mahama. The Electoral Commission of Ghana is compiling a new voter register in all parts of the country. And all Ghanaians 18 years and above are eligible to register. Whether you have previously registered or voted in an election before, you must register now to be able to vote in the December 2020 elections. The time to make a change is now. Register today to vote in December and make a difference in your life and that of your family. Your vote is your voice. To be able to vote, you must register. Register now, and let's do it for Ghana.
Shop online, get free swipes, and enjoy greater security with a card that turns banking on its head. That's Africanacity. That's ABSA.
Welcome back to The Point of View. Tonight we're doing Adongonomics. Started with Techonomics. Not too sure how to call Oforiates economics. Whether it's Kenomics or Oporinomics. But we had Techonomics two programs ago. We had Kenoforiates, and now we have Adongonomics. So what's your major problem with the budget?
So two things. The first one is the 2019 deficit.
Okay.
Is significantly scaled down.
Okay.
And Bernard, if you wouldn't mind, I just want to take you to the data on the 2019 deficit. And you will find that the minister under the financing of the deficit, and if you look at page 106 of the revised budget, he indicates that the total foreign financing or the total financing of the budget from the foreign borrowing is about 16.8 billion. He says this is made up of 5 billion, which is the net financing from the foreign sector, plus some other 13 billion that he has for the domestic financing. Now, the first thing I want to do is to tackle the foreign financing. Under the foreign financing...
This is page 106.
106, yes.
106, okay.
You find that project loans is reported at 2.6. There are no program loans, but there's sovereign bond.
13.6.
13.6. Then he says amortization is 11.2.
Yes.
So technically, if you take the amortization out of the sovereign bonds, what you get is a difference of about 2.4 billion which represent the utilization of the Eurobond to finance the budget. I don't know whether you're seeing
Is
the
this
picture.
in cedis or dollars?
These are in cedis.
Good.
So the Eurobond of 3 billion has been fully converted to 13.64.
Fantastic. Sovereign bond.
And there's an amortization of 11.2 that takes away from the Eurobond.
Good.
So the balance is what actually impacts the deficit.
So far, so
good. Now, the minister in his own annual public debt management report, and I refer you specifically to paragraph 67 of the annual public debt management report for 2019.
Okay, I don't have that here, but you go on.
But the minister says in that report that 1.872 billion United States dollars of our Eurobond that we raised was spent on critical infrastructure and support to the budget.
Okay.
If you convert by the exchange rate that they used for the 2019, which was about 5.54, you get something in excess of 10 billion. It's about 10.6 billion Ghana cedis. So clearly, when you net these two, and you get any figure that does not represent 1.872 billion United States dollars of Eurobond money, that calculation is flawed.
You are still referring to 2019?
2019.
All right.
Okay. Then I refer you again to paragraph 72 of the same annual public debt management report, where the minister now talks about disbursement of loans. So in addition to the Eurobond, what he refers to project loans are disbursement of loans. And in that paragraph, he talks about monies that came from bilateral sources, multilateral sources, and commercial loan drawdowns to fund the budget.
Good.
And it amounts to 1.027 billion United States dollars. If you add that to the 1.87 billion, you get exactly 2.9 billion United States dollars that came from external sources to fund the budget.
Okay.
That's 2.9 billion United States dollars converted by any exchange rate look like 5 billion Ghana cedis.
So your point is that he understated the
foreign financing to the budget.
Yes.
First, he understated the project loans, which is supposed to be in excess of $1 billion. He translated and got a figure of 2.6 billion. I cannot see any exchange rate that will convert 1.027 billion United States dollars to 2.6 billion Ghana cedis.
I wish you had brought the debt.
No, but you can always refer. That's why I'm quoting.
Because you give me two paragraphs.
I'm quoting the paragraph
72. The first paragraph was
67.
67 and 72.
And then 72.
Okay, so based on your calculation,
based on these numbers, based on his own disclosures in the annual public debt management report,
yes,
we should be getting 16 billion as foreign financing to the budget.
Okay.
When you add that 16 billion to this 13 billion of domestic financing, you are getting about 29, almost 30 billion Ghana cedis, and not 16 billion as he's reporting as the total financing to the budget. Now, this 16 billion that he has used is what translates into the deficit he got, which is around 4.7.
Okay.
Or 4.5.
Okay.
So if you do your eats, clearly you see that you are getting almost 6.8%.
Okay. So
and this excludes what he calls the below the line items.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Because I was
these
thinking,
are cash.
so wait,
these are cash.
This 30 billion, if you use it, what percentage would the deficit be?
You get about 6.8%.
But is that not explained by the dispute in May with the dispute?
No,
the issue of inclusion of
these are cash. These are cash transactions.
Yes.
They are not below the line. And again, Bernard, I want you to look at the fiscal tables.
No, but I'm just saying that, just a second. Your predecessor, Mr. Tekwe said to me that if we added the amount of money spent on the financial sector resolution and energy sector challenges to the budget, the deficit will be close to 7% and not the 4% they mentioned. So my question is, does this difference you are pointing out not originate from those two items?
When you add that, it's even worse. What I have shown you is cash financing. Monies you have drawn down from your loans with multilateral, bilateral institutions. They have nothing to do
but
with
the amount of money he spent. Okay, fair enough. So you're saying that.
And I'm saying that
even without the energy and the financial,
we are already doing 6.8%.
Really?
In 2019.
Have you written to him on this?
Oh, I will do that.
To ask for his
I haven't done that, but I will do that. Now, the second one is that, you see, we keep talking about below the line and above the line.
Okay.
When you treat all these revenues and expenditure and you come to overall balance, overall balance cash, okay, immediately after overall balance cash, you now bring non-cash items. So all arrears.
What page are you on now?
I'm on 109.
Okay.
You now bring all arrears that you have not paid. So energy sector costs you haven't paid, their arrears.
Overall balance including diversity and discrepancy. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, so you start from overall, normally you start from overall balance cash.
Percentage GDP discrepancy.
Good,
Yes.
that's cash.
Good.
Then immediately after cash, we say below the line because we deal with cash basis in our accounting of our public finances.
Fair enough.
So anything that is not cash, you treat it below the cash transactions. And that's why we say it is below the line. So now when you come down here, you are supposed to see energy sector cost arrears. You are supposed to see road arrears. You are supposed to see non-road arrears, such as get fund and all of that. Then if you paid part of it, you now subtract what you have paid, which is arrears clearance, from it. So when you subtract, you get a net position of your arrears.
Okay.
When you add that net position of your arrears to your overall balance cash, you now get overall balance commitment.
Which is supposed to be how much?
Which is supposed to be higher. So the figure I have gotten for you, that almost 30 billion, you will now add all your arrears that you have accumulated you haven't paid.
Okay.
Okay? Then you subtract how much of the arrears you have paid in this period.
Okay.
The difference is a net position of your arrears. We call them below the line because they are not cash transactions. You have to bring them after you have gotten your cash. So that's why we say you bring below the line. So below the line is not English written in paragraphs.
Okay.
Are you getting what I'm saying?
I get you now.
And so far, there hasn't been any budget that has been presented where treatment has been made below the line.
Question. When did you find this out? Because in May, you wrote an article and you were thanking the IMF for confirming what you called distasteful manipulation of economic and fiscal data. And finance. At that time, you didn't say this. All you said was that they had presented a deficit without those two items I mentioned.
Yes.
And when Samson Ladi interviewed Dr. Tuna, and he explained and admitted that there was a discrepancy, you said that confirmed your position. So this point you are making now, that even excluding those two things, the deficit was higher. When did you find out?
It was after the annual public debt management report was published.
And when was that?
That was in March.
But this thing you said was in May.
Yeah, but they hadn't published the report.
But the report was out in March.
No. Parliament had not sat on that report. Okay? Parliament sat on that report around April. And it was when I went through the annual public debt management report that I saw disclosures that were not consistent with what we had in the budget. And my analysis of that and where it should have been reported then showed that the numbers have been found.
Let's leave this a bit and come to this particular budget.
So this particular budget, 2020 budget.
Good.
Again, I want to take you to the financing of the 2020 budget.
All right.
The financing of the 2020 budget to end year, the minister makes the point that we are going to receive. Look here, the minister says that.
What page are you on?
I'm looking at page 110.
Okay.
The minister says project loans that we are going to receive will amount to 4.9 billion Ghana cedis. Then he says that program loans, the $1 billion we collected from IMF, the monies we got from the World Bank, Africa Development Bank, all of them put together, we are getting 8.2 billion.
You are looking at 2020 revised.
Yeah, 2020 revised.
Not the original 2020. No, so this is the middle column.
Yeah, the middle column.
Fair.
So if you add the 4.9 to the 8.2, you get 13.1 billion.
Good.
Good. We approve in Parliament a Eurobond issuance with a utilization formula for the budget.
Yes.
That was $3 billion with $2 billion being spent on the budget. If you convert $2 billion by 5.7, you get 11.4 billion Ghana cedis. Okay? So if you add that to the 13 billion that I was talking about, you get 24.7 billion Ghana cedis. Add that 34 billion, because he now goes on to say that we'll also be financing the same budget with domestic borrowing of 32 billion. So if you add 24 billion to 32 billion, you get 56 billion and not 44 billion. Are you getting what I'm saying? Now look at the treatment he has made to the Eurobond. You have put all the 3 billion and you say it is called, the total amount is 17,385 billion. But you've taken an amortization of 12 billion, which reduces the total Eurobond money that is financing the budget to 5 billion. How can $2 billion be 5 billion Ghana cedis?
Let me get something straight. If you guys, show me the paragraphs in the budget, just to let listeners follow, because we are saying things are not me. So show me the first one. I picked out, good, Mr. Speaker, the revision in the total revenue and grants and total expenditure results in a deficit on cash base of 44 billion. Now, Mr. Adongo is saying that this figure is not 44.
It's 56 billion.
Good. Now, it says the deficit is expected to be financed from both foreign and domestic sources. Net foreign financing is 18 billion. Total domestic financing, 25 billion. Now, then it says the corresponding primary balance worsens by 2. We are not interested in that. So the first point Mr. Furiata is making is that his fiscal deficit on cash basis is 44 billion. Now, go to the next doc. Go to the next.
No, don't just stay here. Let me tell you something.
Yes, talk to me.
If you look at the fiscal tables.
Yes, I want to show you the table.
I'm coming now.
The table.
Okay, so then go to the table.
Go to the table. This one, summary of fiscal operations. He says his. I'm coming now. His revenue is 57, revised budget. He's saying his total expenditure is 97. If you subtract 53 from 97, you get a 44, which we just mentioned.
Bernard, these figures,
97 minus 53 is 44.
These figures must be picked from 110. And the numbers he's putting there are not corresponding to his financing regime under 110.
Yes, I'm coming. The man says his deficit is 44.
Yeah, Adam says it's not.
A deficit is expenditure minus revenue.
Yes.
His expenditure is row 2, 97, revised budget. Revenue and grant, 53. That's 44. Now you are saying that the 44 is wrong because if you come to the appendix, when you add all the things he wants to spend, it's not 97. It's 109.
You see,
that's your argument.
Yes. What I'm saying is that I want to get the expenditure from the financing side of the budget.
I get you.
Good. So you notice that in his finances, domestic net is 32 billion in the fiscal tables. Okay. How did he get 25 billion here? Do you get me? Because if you look at 110, his net domestic financing is 32 billion. Why is he reporting 25 billion as his net domestic financing?
What if
and this is not my document.
What if he tells you that he has treated it for amortization?
No, you can't treat the domestic. You see, he's showing that.
Because you see, if you go to paragraph 444,
I'll come to that.
Yes, he's basically saying that his total, the paragraph 444 exposes that it's limited at 97 and the 109.
So let me tell you what the paragraph 444 does. If you add the 53 billion, which is the total revenue and grants, to the 56 billion I am getting from the foreign and domestic financing, it gives 109 billion. It is not by coincidence that in 444, he himself alludes to the fact that the total appropriation will now amount to 109 billion. But in his tables, he's not reporting 109 billion, he's reporting 97 billion.
Okay, let me show you something. Go to the next document.
But do you agree with me that the 25 billion, you can't trace it?
Yes, I'm coming. But that 97, there's a problem there. But I wanted to show you something that I thought. Okay. Go to the next document. You see, in 2019, when he came to you, he asked for 98 billion appropriation. 98 billion.
Yeah.
If you add the 11 he's asking for, the 11.8 he's asking for, you get a 109.
Yes, but in the fiscal tables, I agree with you. You see, that is why this 444 exposes the manipulation in the fiscal table.
So you are saying that the deficit is not 44?
Because you cannot be saying that you had 98. If you add this, you are getting 109 billion. But if you look at the fiscal tables, you are reporting expenditures of 97 billion. Do you get me? He should have been reporting 109 billion in the fiscal table.
I sent, let me read what Deputy Minister is saying in response to you.
Which of the Deputy Ministers?
Charles.
Okay.
Now, Charles says, let me read a couple of things. He says, it's not a mistake. One includes amortization, while the other does not. Then he goes on. What he quoted as 109 includes amortization of 12 billion, which is a financing item. You can't mix above the line expenditure with below the line expenditure. Then he goes on. Total expenditure including arrears have been revised from 85.5 billion to 97.7, showing a deviation of 11.7 billion as shown in the table under reference. However, from the fiscal tables in Appendix 3C, total appropriation, which includes a revised amortization of 12.1 billion, has been revised from 98 billion to 109, leading to a deficit of 11.8 billion. This is the explanation.
Which table is he saying?
Let me read the whole thing again.
Now you show me the table he says has been revised to 109.
He says, from the fiscal tables in Appendix 3C.
Yeah, 3C, yes.
Total
3C
appropriation, which includes a revised amortization of 12.1 billion, has been revised from 98 billion to 109.9, leading to a deficit of 11.8 billion. So Bernard, the deficit figure he's saying is 11.8, which is asking for.
Bernard.
Yes.
If you have 53 billion to spend.
Yes.
If you have 53 billion of your own money, okay, and you are spending 109 billion, how much will you borrow to fund that expenditure?
You take away 53 from 109.
You get 56 billion.
Yes.
So exactly my point. If you are appropriating 109 billion, then your deficit cannot be 44 billion because your own money is only 53 billion. But you are saying that we should approve 109 billion for you to spend. So how much are you asking us to approve for you to borrow?
So you are saying, you are alleging that they understate the amount they actually will spend by 55 minus 44.
Yes, 12 billion.
That's what. But he said that 12 billion has been. I mean, I just read.
Listen, that 12 billion is already netted. You see, when I was calculating, you notice that I did not bring 3 billion as the expenditure. I brought 12 billion. I didn't bring $3 billion. I brought only $2 billion. You get the point? Okay. So if it is $3 billion, you see, whether it is amortization or it is whatever expenditure, you are borrowing to pay for it.
Okay.
Do you get the point?
Yes.
So you cannot take it out of the monies you are going to borrow to pay the amortization.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that if you approved a certain amount in the previous budget, and the person is asking for 11.8, if you add that 11.8,
you get a total appropriation
1.109.
Good. But your total revenue yourself,
yes,
is 53 billion.
Good.
So how much are you asking us to let you borrow?
I get you. There's a bigger difference that I have to explain.
You have to borrow 56 billion. Whether you are using it to pay amortization or salaries or wages, it's not material.
Is this not an accounting difference?
No, it is a very standard treatment. You see, you cannot say that you have revenue of 53 billion.
Okay.
But you want to spend 109 billion. Part of what you are spending the 109 billion on is to amortize existing loan.
Okay.
So technically you are borrowing 56 billion to finance your expenditure, including...
So when they state 44 billion, they are under...
Stating the deficit.
How much they are going to
exactly
spend. That's your point.
So if you now pick 56 billion, you get a deficit of 15.6% and not 11.8%.
Okay.
You see, all this amortization gimmick must stop.
I think the government can explain. I've just read to you.
No, it is not a good explanation. You see, you are borrowing to pay the amortization.
Let me read what, I don't know if I read. It says, what he is quoting as 109 includes amortization of 12 billion.
Yes.
Which is a financing item.
Yes, financing is what?
First point.
Financing is what?
Mix above the line expenditure with
Which
below
one is
the
above the line? Who is above below the line?
The total expenditure including arrears is 97.7, which is what I showed you in the graph before. The 97.7 that you are saying should be higher. Total expenditure including arrears was revised from 85.5 to 97.7. It was clear there. Showing a deviation of 11 billion as shown in the table under reference. However, from the fiscal tables in Appendix 3C, total appropriation, which includes a revised amortization of 12 billion, has been revised from 98 to 109, leading to a deficit of 11.8. This is the explanation they state.
And I'm not saying that. You see, what is deficit? Deficit is borrowing to fund it.
Yes.
So if you are borrowing to fund your maturing loan obligation is a deficit. That's why he calls it a financing item.
Okay.
Financing item means that it is not your money. You are going to take the money from somebody. Okay. So in total, the substance of all of this is that you have 53 billion, you are borrowing 56 billion to make up 109 billion. Any other treatment that reduces that figure is unacceptable.
Good. Now, if he submits these figures to the IMF or to any of the roadshows he goes on to, I'm sure they will find out whether it's standard or not, just as the issue of the financing for the financial sector and the energy sector came up with the IMF. No. I'm sure if he submits a deficit of 11.6, if your calculation is correct, obviously it will come up in any of those fora. So it shouldn't be a problem.
Bernard, investors, you see, until we had the need to access funding from IMF, we were not going to give a treatment of our financial position consistent with international best practice, which IMF insisted on. So we would have been continuing. Have you looked at the?
No, but IMF acknowledges the 7% deficit in the.
And I'm saying that.
Yeah.
Until IMF, we approached them for $1 billion, with which they then insisted.
Okay.
That you must treat certain items consistent with international best practice. We were always being told a certain figure here. And I'm saying that here, I'm not even talking about below or above the line.
Yeah.
You see, if you say that you have already lumped arrears to the 97 billion, arrears are not part.
But were we ever given end of year figures here? Because you do know that the figures that they give us in a lot of the reporting usually doesn't get to the end of year.
I agree.
So
I've said that already.
So my point is that if what they eventually give the IMF is different, that could be explained by the fact that the IMF thing they get is at the end of year. Ours may be preliminary.
No, Ben.
And you admitted that.
Ben. Bernard,
yes.
We went to IMF and reported to IMF around when? Around
which of the years are you talking about?
This year. We went there around March.
Yes.
For the 1 billion.
Yes, March.
And in March, we were able to get all the data up to date, even for 2019.
Yes.
As at 2019, we're still dealing with interim numbers for 2017 and 2018 in Ghana. A whole year.
When he presented the 2020 budget in November 2019, he didn't include what he gave to the IMF in March, because that was 4 months after.
And I'm saying that within 3 months of the end of 2019, we got up-to-date data to give to IMF.
Okay, before we take a break, I want you to... there's a question. So what? The point you've made about if the deficit is bigger than 44, so what?
So you should be worried that you are running such a huge deficit of 56 billion, which is more than what you are raising. How can a country borrow more than its own revenue?
But every country is doing that. Germany's finance minister says, don't talk to me about deficit. Everybody is borrowing.
No, Germany gives you money. Germany knows how to fund that deficit. We are piling up 56 billion in 1 year, and we are saying Germany gives us free money.
But this is they say this is an unusual year.
Chief, we can't run this reckless. You see, I wanted to show you something.
Go ahead.
2020, the first 6 months treatment.
Let me say something while you're doing that. Good morning, good evening, Bernard. Countries all over the world are no longer concerned about real economic figures due to devastating impact of COVID-19. America's debt is now $26 trillion and counting. Argentina's economy has been thrown out of gear way before COVID-19. Many countries in Europe and the UK are suffering same. A country like Ghana, fully committed to solving the virus situation with lots of stimulus packages and energy emergency increments in wages, amid over 500k job losses, will definitely feel the impact of reflecting on the country's economic figures. Let's ask ourselves which of these countries cited by Adongo have provided these stimulus packages in the midst of this pandemic. Any comparison of our economic growth must factor in these variables. Prince Bansa in London. He's trying to say that this is not an ordinary year.
No. So, Bernard, there is no justification for 56 billion. There is absolutely none. Let me give you some data.
No, let me take a short break. Then you come and do that. We have 10 minutes, so we need to be quick. We spend a lot of time on this.
I want to give you some data.
This is still the point of view. I will give him the chance to make his final point, and I'll read your comments. Don't go away.
I'm just not ready yet. I want to wait a little before getting pregnant again.
Stop worrying and live free. No matter who you are, Lydia has a contraceptive just for you. Choose the Lydia Daily Contraceptive Pill with iron as your regular contraceptive, or the Lydia IUD, a non-hormonal contraceptive for long-term pregnancy prevention. Contact the Lydia Contact Center and let us help you decide how to live free. With Lydia, you truly decide.
Shop online, get free swipes, and enjoy greater security with a card that turns banking on its head. That's Africanacity. That's ABSA.
Ghanaians don't always agree, and that's fine as long as we respect each other and play by the rules. It doesn't matter who you vote for. What matters is that you make your voice heard and that every vote counts. A new clean voters registry ensures that no matter who you vote for, democracy always wins. Go out to register today.
Welcome back to The Point of View. My guest is Honorable Isaac Adongo, member of the Finance Committee. Lots of comments for you. Bernard, Honorable Adongo has shown he's an economic gem. Bogatanga NDC is grateful to you. Solomon Dunyo. Good evening, Bernard. I want to know from the member of Finance Committee why the nation keeps giving tax holidays to foreign companies for years. Then we end up going to seek funds to support our finance for our budget. This is Mohammed. Bernard, God bless Azungu for exposing the skeletal true nature of our Ghanaian economy. You indeed made the layman understand the reality on the ground, not Baumia type of economy. This is Dalaba Raphael from Bolga Sakobsi. Okay. Bernard, it's time we moved away from the issue of economists to economy. You studying economy in school does not mean you can be an economist or you can manage an economy. Managing an economy needs courage and wisdom. Let's learn to develop this country with unity, for united we stand, divided we fall. Greetings to Isaac Azongo. Okay, this is Kingsley from McCarthy Hill. Is Honorable Adongo interpreting what IMF came out with, or he came with his own interpretation? Bernard, thank you for asking very relevant questions to dispute what he's saying. I am Bismarck, Kwada Square State, Kumasi. Bernard, Ghana and your viewers are just blessed to have intelligent journalists like you. I won't say more. Prince from Malam. Okay. Good evening, Bernard. I'm happy watching Adongo as your guest. What a great show with facts and figures. My regards to Honorable Tel Abi and JM. You have 5 minutes. So you've said first thing, you are saying that you disagree with the fact that things were good before COVID. Number two, you are saying the deficit we were given for 2019 was understated. You're also saying that the 44 billion we say we are going for, translating to a deficit of
11.8
is not correct.
Good.
And I asked you a big and so what? And you said it means we should be worried that our debt is going out of gear.
Yeah. And it will take a painful several years of correction to rein in that fiscal imbalance. Okay? It doesn't just get away because this year you expanded the fiscal space. You're going to have quite a lot of challenge consolidating that.
But he told us he's going to get 100 billion. He says he's going to give us 100 billion for the next 3 years. He told us how he's going to fund it.
That shouldn't be 2020 but media review, because in the 2020 budget, you don't come to a media review and introduce new. You are supposed to give us an update of your existing program. So when you come and you are talking 2021, 2023, who says you'll be the president in 2021?
But if you plan and think ahead,
he cannot plan for the next president.
But how do you know who the next president will be?
But how do you know whether he will be the one to implement it?
That's why you should plan then.
That is why the country has a framework.
Okay.
For planning, and he's already done the plan with the social and economic framework for 4 years. Stay with that. You can't be planning for the next government, who is John Dramani Mahama. Now,
somebody wanted me to ask you a question before you go. Somebody has to ask you that he has heard President Mahama, former President Mahama, say that everybody will be paid. Those whose money got locked up.
Yeah.
Now, this guy is a Men's Gold customer, and he says he wants me to be sure. I should ask you to be sure. He says, Bernard, ask Adongo how they are going to pay the Men's Gold money as claimed by the Director of Communication. This person is money day Men's Gold. Gidi.
Oh, really?
So he wants me to be sure you are saying Mahama will pay the Men's Gold money. Because he says he's waiting with his stamp to know where to vote.
To be honest with you.
So let's be sure.
To be honest with you, the first line that I can answer are regulated businesses.
Ah, okay.
That is what I can answer for now.
Meaning?
I haven't asked John Dramani Mahama whether that includes unregulated businesses.
So for now, banks, SDIs, and
all the regulated entities that are in trouble because the state has given assurance to those people who put their money in those entities that if you put your money there, they are safe.
So you can't talk about Men's Gold?
I can't talk about Men's Gold for now because I don't know whether that is part of
so
the
bro, you got your answer.
But I know
it's Men's Gold. You say you can't.
I can't speak
it's
about
a different
Men's Gold. I can speak about regulated business.
Do you know how much is owed? How much is left? Because they say they paid 96% of people.
96% is no figure.
I think he
96% of what figure?
Of the amount that.
How much is the amount?
I'm not. I don't work for him, but he's basically saying that.
So you see, you can't just throw percentages around.
The finance minister mentioned three figures. He mentioned 13. He mentioned 5. He mentioned 3. 21 billion spent on the resolution of the 3 tiers. He mentioned that.
Bernard,
he mentioned that.
Those numbers are alien to Parliament. You know why? We have approved only 17.6 billion. He hasn't come back to us to seek approval for all the monies he's mentioning.
13 for the banks, 5 for the SDIs, 3 for the SEC companies.
I'm telling you that the 5 for the SDIs is even alien because we approved a ratification of 13.6 billion that they didn't come to us, and they requested for a further 4 billion.
Yeah, but not all the money. Sorry, but not all that money will come from the budget because the receiver is supposed to realize some assets. So that
the receiver is talking 151 million Ghana. I don't think that is money. 151 million, I don't think that is money. But Bernard, somebody made a very important point when he said that we should move away from economics to the economy.
Yes.
And that is why what our current running mate sought to do 2 nights ago.
Professor?
Yes, that's what Professor Nana Jeno Pokwajima sought to do. Some people are standing on one wobble leg, which is economics, and that is economic statistics.
So would you welcome a debate between her and the running mate of the MPP on general issues? A real economy debate.
What I want to...
Not just economics,
the economy, when Jane says...
The real economy.
When Jane says...
Yes.
That she will not be the only person to go through the door, but she will hold it for more women to come in.
Yeah.
She's dealing with the totality of the quality of life of women.
Okay.
That is the economy. The economy deals with the totality of the quality of life of people.
Not economics.
And not economics.
Fantastic.
So some people don't even know that what they are discussing is economy. But now we have elevated the conversation
beyond
to the economy.
I see.
So when she says...
the time is finished.
Okay.
Bring her here. I'll talk to her just like I talked to you. Thank you, Adongo. Always good to talk to you.
It's my pleasure.
I hope you've enjoyed the show. Sorry about all the numbers. Watch it again tomorrow. You will get it. Adongo is just a big man. My name is Bernard Abele. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Point of View is powered by Airtel Tigo Extra. Even our bonus data doesn't expire. You the film? Dial *111# to activate now. Airtel Tigo. Life is simple. And Lydia Contraceptive. With Lydia, you truly decide.